Well, hi everyone, welcome back to another Wildwoods Honeybee Farms YouTube video. Welcome back to the Wildwoods Beekeeping Podcast. Thank you all so much for joining me tonight. Hope everybody is having a very wonderful day. Hope everybody has had a great weekend. And it's December 22nd. It is 6 o'clock, at least right now. Whenever you're watching, it might be the replay. So if you were watching the replay, thank you for watching. If you're live, thank you for watching the show live. So this week, as we all know, it's the holiday season. We have Christmas coming up in about 30 days. We have New Year's coming up. So we have a lot of holiday traditions that we all do. And I hope everybody's having a great holiday season. So I kind of have everything kind of set up. You see Christmas tree in the back, to try to have the holiday spirit. And tonight's, kind of chat, I kind of want to touch on the topic is the most overrated beekeeping advice, which we will get into in just a second. I want to give some time for people to join in. So if you are watching on the replay, it's this is kind of do it live. So if you're wanting to look for right whenever the presentation starts, like the topic, I will probably put the start time in the comment below or in the description, so you can easily find where the presentation starts, the reason why you clicked onto this live stream. So first off, what I always do is welcome everybody again. Thank y'all. On your way in, click that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you are new. I actually just recently hit 2,700 subscribers, so that's a really new little milestone, kind of an even number. So we're working up. I'm working up my way to 3,000. As everybody knows, I'm planning to do a 3,000 subscriber giveaway once I reach that 3,000 mark. I'm looking forward to that. So if you will, click that like button. It really helps this video get out to more viewers. We'll give some time for people to join in, usually earlier on in the live streams. It takes a touch of time for people to join in, usually how it goes. So we'll give some people some time. Gary was number one. Thanks for checking in, Gary. I think I saw some more comments from him recently. That was at 3. That was actually 3:59 earlier. Dennis Sherrill, thanks for checking in, Dennis. Russell Amon, Russell, thanks for checking in. A little subscriber, watches all the time. Eggstead Gardens, weather's been cold and warm. I have sugar water out and also fondant in the hives. Yeah, it's kind of been up and down temperatures. This week's going to be real nice, warm. Bees will be flying. Not really the best. I've already mentioned it like 100 times so far about the up and down inconsistent temperatures, where I'd much rather it be cold more often rather than warm up and down. But, you just kind of got to deal with it down here, which I do. And on Christmas, it's supposed to be 70 degrees. So, I mean, we don't really have a white Christmas. It's usually warm. Thanks for checking in, Mike. Let's see. Pastor Larry and Miss Jan, Hallelujah Beef Farm. Thanks for checking in. Randy, the Tar Heel Beekeeper, 3971. Thanks for checking in, Randy. Appreciate it. Richard, Bee Collector Rick. Thanks for checking in, Rick. Your room is cool. Thank you. It is a really cool room, and got Christmas tree in the back. Usually, when Christmas comes around, whenever I put up my Christmas tree, I kind of don't worry about my backdrop and just kind of let everything, show. So make it kind of looks nice during Christmas, kind of Christmas spirit, right? We have Tim and Hannah, Gunline Bees. Thanks for checking in, Tim and Hannah. I appreciate it. David Hunter, thanks for checking in, David. We already have a nice amount of people already in here joining in. I appreciate y'all. Haven't gotten anything yet. Looks like I'll be doing cash. I got cleared to drive. I get you. All right. I think everybody's already kind of greeted everybody. If I missed somebody, I apologize. But as this show goes on, I will, I'll welcome more folks in as they come in. So tonight's topic is the most overrated beekeeping advice. You might be, not really. Once we get into the topic, you'll kind of know why I'm kind of talking about this. There's a lot of great advice out there, and honestly, I can't, I'm right now giving advice on my channel. I give out advice, so there's good advice out there. But there is some stuff out there where, there's kind of a little bit overrated that kind of says people say too much. And really, I've kind of talked about it a lot. A lot of these advice that people give out is really depending on your temperatures, your climate. So just because somebody tells you something like, a piece of advice or tips, or what I do tips videos and stuff like that. Whenever you hear that stuff, don't automatically just use that exact thing that they're telling you, because there's a lot of factors that go into what they're telling you. That a lot of times they're talking about themselves and what they have experienced, and a lot of times it's, doesn't work for you because climate, temperatures, all that stuff really does play a factor into what works and what doesn't. So I think that's really what's this is kind of being taught, what I'm really going to be talking about. Not just, bad advice, but really advice where you don't need to, just go all in that advice. Sometimes you can still take certain stuff that people tell you and, kind of change it up a little bit to work for you. My saying is sometimes you can take pieces of advice, screws and bolts, and you can screw those bolts onto something, kind of change it up a little bit. So that's going to be the topic for tonight. Of course, I do my presentation like I usually do. So like usual, I will not be looking at the chat when I'm doing this. So if you're kind of chatting, asking questions, feel free to put questions in the chat. I will answer those later. But if you are putting those questions or topics, or you just joining in, I'm not trying to ignore you. Just doing my presentation, and I won't really be able to look at the comments. Kind of my usual thing, as y'all know. So we're first gonna the first number one, I guess you'd say, overrated piece of advice is, just leaving them alone. And you may be wondering, what do I mean by this? Meaning you shouldn't, inspect, you shouldn't do anything. A lot of people say, organic beekeeping. It's not really organic beekeeping, just pretty much what it says, just leave them alone, not, doing anything. A lot of times, a lot of people say this, especially people who, don't, really buy into inspecting and kind of taking care of their bees, management, that type of stuff. A lot of people out there, don't really do anything like that, hands off beekeeping. And that's fine because it does work, and a lot of people have success with it. So if that's what you're doing, keep doing it. If it works for you, don't listen to me, keep doing it. But if you're a new beekeeper, new beekeepers, I would say, probably shouldn't, just leave them alone. The problem, with this is that a lot of people hear that and think it means never to open the hive, never check, and to never intervene when things are not, going right, or, they don't even know. Bees today aren't living in hollow trees with no pressure. They are dealing with mites, beetles, limited forage, and managed environments. Leaving bees alone means ignoring them most times. It means not doing unnecessary things, but still paying attention and stepping in when something is going wrong. So what I've always kind of talked about is intentional beekeeping, and this is kind of what goes into it. You don't want to just, I never advise anybody to just go into a hive for no reason. I mean, don't overdo them, don't over inspect them. There's two sides of this right here, really. There's one where you're too hands off and more hands on, that I think you need to I like to hit the middle. I don't like to over inspect them, over manage them. I don't like to under manage them or under inspect them, kind of right in the middle. I call that intentional beekeeping. You've probably heard that a lot. Being intentional is really important. It kind of plays into a factor with this kind of overrated advice. You just need to kind of stick towards the middle. All right, number two. More inspections cause more problems. And another thing with these, when I'm kind of talking about this stuff, is I kind of try to before I get into it, you can just kind of look at the title of this overrated advice. You never want to over inspect, and it can be kind of taken out of context whenever what I'm trying to say. You can take this right here into a million different ways, but what I mean is, well, you can inspect them once a week, especially in spring. So you can, more inspections, don't cause more harm. But what does cause harm is inspecting them like every couple days or something like that. You never need to do that. It's okay to do it maybe once a week, especially in spring. Every 2 weeks is fine. But there again, here you kind of want to hit it more in the middle, not too much and not too less. It's kind of same thing what I was talking about earlier. So I've kind of talked about it before. You a lot of times, you've heard me say before too, opening your hive way too much causes stress or sets the bees back, and it does. I've had that problem before, kind of over inspecting my bees and doing way too much. And that is very, very much true, but especially if your inspections are sloppy or, pointless. That's really what I've talked about a lot. If you're inspecting your bees for no reason, a pointless reason, then there's no reason to be inspecting them. But if you have a reason that you're going into your colonies, especially in spring, whether it be you're looking for swarm cells, you expect your bees, soon to be swarming, and you want to prevent that. You're looking for brood patterns. You're looking at your new queens, looking if your queens even in the hive coming out of winter. If you have a reason, inspect your bees a little bit more often. If you don't have a reason, there's no reason to go out. It just really depends on your scenario, really. But avoiding, inspections altogether creates a different problem. The main problem you get is you miss issues until they're too far away to fix. Especially for new beekeepers, inspections are how you learn what normal looks like. You can't recognize problems if you don't know what healthy brood, population, and even food stores look like. So I've talked about it a lot before. Hands-on experience is really, really a big thing for new beekeepers. You can watch all the videos you want. You can watch all the tips videos you want. You can watch what I'm talking about. I've done a lot of videos, kind of advice, tips, stuff like that. You can watch a lot of that stuff, but really the biggest, best thing for you is to have a lot more hands-on experience, and that's really what's going to help you be a better beekeeper. Again, what I just talked about, it's really, you don't want to overdo your inspections because you're going to stress the bees, but if you underdo them, you're going to miss problems. So again, you want to hit it really in the sweet spot in what I think is about every 1 to 2 weeks in spring. And then in summer, you don't want to be inspecting your bees more, like you do in spring. You probably want to then switch to 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks for your inspections in summer. I've talked about that before. I'm sure you can find some videos on that. Number 3, big one, a lot of new beekeepers will hear, if there's brood, that must mean everything's fine, right? Well, seeing brood feels reassuring. It tells you there's a queen and that eggs are being laid, but brood alone doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't mean that your hive is like the best it can be. You can have brood and still have a colony that is struggling, weak, or not healthy. A small population, low food stores, or bad timing can still cause a colony to fail, even with a laying queen and brood in the colony. Brood is one piece to know if your colony is healthy. You still have to look at population size, stores, space, and what season you are in. Number 4 is strong hives will fix weak ones. The problem is that weak hives are often weak for a reason. If you don't understand that reason, adding resources from a strong hive can spread mites, pests, or even diseases. Because we all know weak colonies a lot of times have a higher mite load, higher potentially diseases, pests. There's always a reason for your colony to be weak. Sometimes they can even be weak, if you don't feed them enough. It's just a lot of different reasons. Strong hives are also not unlimited. Taking from them at the wrong time can weaken your best colonies. Sometimes combining is the right move, but it shouldn't be the first move without understanding why the hive is weak in the first place. All right, the number 5 is don't feed, let them make real honey. And this is another one of those kind of similar to the one before about not wanting to inspect your bees. Kind of hands-off beekeeping, which is still works. I know a lot of beekeepers who do that and have tremendous success. It's all great. If you're a beekeeper and you're doing something that's working, I think you should stick with that. I'm doing something that's working for me. I plan to stick with it. The way I manage my bees, everybody has different management strategies and different ways to keep their bees. Winter management, spring management, summer management, fall management. We all have different ones that work for us. So if it's working for you, go with it. But this one right here, I think is probably one that I think is pretty much overrated. Most beekeepers should feed their colonies if they have a reason to. This is one of those pieces of advice that sounds, good, and might sound like it might be better for the bees because so a lot of people might think that, but it's, it really causes a lot of unnecessary colony losses. Feeding isn't, like overrunning the system or anything. It's a management tool. Bees can't build comb, raise brood, or survive dearths without resources. That's why a lot of times during a dearth, you want to feed because there isn't any natural food out there. Early spring, there's not really much natural honey out there, right? So you're going to have to feed to get your bees to build up, whether build up brood, build up the colony, getting ready for splits and everything. Um, there's times where I don't feed. There's times where I do feed. During winter, I do not feed sugar syrup. I feed hard candy, hard hard food. I don't, feed sugar syrup because that can cause condensation and unwanted moisture that the sugar syrup could drip onto the bees and cause unwanted problems. Um, so the goal of feeding isn't to replace nectar forever, but to support the colony when nature isn't cooperating, which Mother Nature doesn't always go the way we want it to. So when we're talking about feeding, when should you feed? It really depends on where you're at. It depends on your climate. It depends on where you live. I mean, a lot of factors. I usually feed. Actually coming into this year, I really didn't feed much. I fed some of my main colonies because I came out with 4, but I really didn't, feed. When I splitted my bees, there was already a flow going. I didn't have to feed those splits, but I did feed the new colonies coming out in winter because I didn't have any nectar. I did have pollen coming in, which helps out with brood, but they could easily starve. And one thing that a lot of people don't really understand is that it's not really early winter that the bees starve. Like right now, my bees aren't really starving right now. They're okay. I'm not really feeding them much right now because they are full of honey. But here in the next couple of weeks, when we get into January and February, we're going to get into that time where bees starve. That's really when bees starve. And we talked about it last week about, why bees starve later in winter. That's because they run out of food. Early winter, they have enough food, to get through the first couple of weeks, maybe first couple of months. But once you get to early spring, late winter, it all might look good. It feels warm. No way they starve, right? Then boom, it hits you that they starve. So feeding is really a big management tool for beekeepers to use. Of course, whenever you're in your natural flow, when you have a honey flow, there's no need to feed. It's just kind of wasting sugar, and the bees aren't going to take it really that much. So there's times to feed, there's times not to feed. Like I said, early spring, when there's no food out there, no nectar, because most times early spring there's not a whole lot out there, because down here, it takes a touch of time for the privet to get going. So I will feed early. Fall is a time to feed because you're trying to get them built up for winter. For me, actually, this year, I was able to get a really, really good fall flow. And that fall flow did really everything I needed it to do. It really did what feeding would have done, so I really didn't have to feed. It really depends on kind of how your flow goes. If your flow doesn't go well, you're going to have to feed. But if it goes well, there's a good chance you might not have to feed. So it just really depends on what your season is doing, what your flow is doing, and it depends on your climate. I think that's like the 5th, 6th time I've said that about it depends on your climate, but it really does. Everything in beekeeping depends on your climate, really. Excuse me. Number 6 a lot of people mention it, is local bees don't need management. And first off, you may be wondering why do people think that? It was really mainly because local genetics. A lot of people think that since they're local, they're wild bees that they can survive without us helping them. And they did it before, so you'd think that they can, and they certainly can. That's not no doubt, but you're still gonna be putting them in a box. You're still, if you do a cutout or if you get natural local bees, you're still removing them from their natural home and you're putting them in a box. So I still think that you still need to do management. Now, management, does that mean you have to feed? Does that mean you have to treat for mites, test for mites? I mean, there's a lot of different things. A lot of different things for management. You don't have to treat if you don't want to. I'm that kind of guy where I don't treat. I do treat, I just don't overdo it. I don't do it like some other of you guys do it. I don't, I'm kind of more conservative whenever I'm treating. I don't do it like multiple times a year, maybe twice a year, spring and fall. That's just kind of what I do. Is kind of what works for me. But there's a lot of different things in management. Local genetics, I've always talked about, are great. They can absolutely be helpful because they know your climate. They are in your area, so they most likely can handle your climate and your forage better. They have a better understanding of your climate. But no bees are maintenance free. Local bees still face mites, beetles, weather swings, and food shortages. Just because they're local doesn't mean that they're not going to have problems, because they certainly will, and you're still going to have to manage those bees. Like I said, there's a lot of different things with management. A lot of people talk about mites all the time. And I've kind of talked about it tonight, but to me, mites aren't the biggest thing for us to be talking about. I think we all kind of get caught up in mites, which they're still important. Bees died because of mites. It's really not the mites themselves. It's really the viruses that those mites, transmit to the bees. But you also have to take into consideration weather swings, starvation. You have to take into consider those other management things, not just mites. So a lot of people might take this as that means, you don't need to treat. I'm not saying that. You don't have to treat if you don't want to. There's a lot of things in that involve around when we kind of talk about management, right? Assuming local bees don't need attention often leads to missed problems and preventable losses. Genetics very much help. They help your climate, like we talked about earlier, but they don't replace good observation and management. Already 25 minutes by. It's kind of going by pretty quick. If y'all have questions in the comment box, feel free to put them in there, and I will go back after this presentation and answer them, whether it be around this topic or anything else. All right, number 7, just add another box. So adding boxes, feels like doing something productive, but space alone doesn't fix colony problems. And first off, you may be wondering, what do I mean by just add another box? A lot of times, you don't need to just add another box. We can talk about swarming, and we also kind of talk about the number of boxes, because a lot of newer beginners get caught up in having 5 boxes on top, 6. A lot of people think that if you have more boxes means your colonies are more stronger, and that's not really the case. You can have a single, you can have a nuke, a 5-ring nuke, and as long as they are healthy and packed full, they're gonna get through the winter. Bees can't defend, heat, or manage empty space if they don't have the population to support it. Too much space too soon can actually slow a colony down or make it vulnerable to pests and predators. Box management is about matching space to population, not just stacking equipment. Because it's not just about stacking equipment. It's just not really about that. You can't just add boxes because you think they need it. You have to manage your bees. You have to look at the space, because a lot of times in winter, you can't just leave all the boxes on there. You kind of have to even it out between colonies. You may be wondering, why do you got to do that? It's kind of useless. Might as well put all the boxes you can. Too much space is never really that good. To me, I just feel better whenever I take off unneeded boxes. If there's an empty box on top that they have not filled up, I always take it off and store it. And then when I get back into spring, then I put it right back on, and then they draw it out. I actually had a kind of situation similar to that, what I'm kind of talking about. I actually put on some supers in fall, or actually, it was actually kind of late summer, and they never drew them out, didn't do anything, and then I got into fall and they started drawing them out, but it was super, super slow, and it was just really too late. They drew it out a little bit, but there's no reason to leave them on, so I took all of them off and then put them away. I have them in a little storage room, and I'll plan to bring them out later, back in spring, and put them back on. So, you may be wondering, why advice becomes a problem. So, the real issue with beekeeping advice, and I always give tips and advice, is how easily it turns into rules. Simple phrases spread well online, but they leave out the context, nuance that actually matters. Bees don't follow calendars, checklists, or social media tips. They respond to conditions, their climate, temperatures, temperature swings, up and down, inconsistent temperatures. The moment advice becomes like absolute, it stops being helpful. And that's what I've talked a lot about before, is when people ask questions and advice. Advice, is a helpful tool, but it's just not like a rule. There's not a whole lot of rules in beekeeping. There are a couple of rules that apply 100% all the time. There are those rules, and we talked about a lot of them before. I'm not going to go over all of them because kind of take a long time. But most things in beekeeping, there's not really a right answer. There's a lot of different options and a lot of different ways to keep your bees. That's why anytime people ask questions, I always give them really a lot of times the same answer, that a lot of times it depends on your climate, and I can't really, if I'm going to give you advice, it's never going to be a absolute. It's not going to be something that is something that is 100%. It's a rule. It's because it's not beekeeping advice isn't rules. Most things at least. A lot of advice, a lot of management things. It just depends on where you live. It depends on kind of what you prefer. Absolutely. All right, so what actually matters? So healthy colonies come from paying attention to a few key things. What are these? Colony strength, timing, environment, and observation. Good beekeepers don't memorize rules, they learn how to read bees. And that's reading bees comes from hands-on experience. So if you're a new beekeeper, to know how to read your bees, you just have to learn. You have to go out into your bee yard and look at what your bees are doing. And I have my own kind of thing that I read my bees all the time. I've kind of mentioned it before, and it's really nothing that kind of goes with this. This is just kind of something kind of totally different from this topic, but I kind of talked about it last week. My bees, when it gets colder, are more, when they cluster, are more compact. Whenever it's warmer, they're not as compact. How do I know that? I didn't look it up. It's just me reading my bees and kind of what they do. I noticed that. I noticed those kind of some of those details in my bees, and that's just kind of from me opening my colonies a lot, from reading the bees. So that you're going to, if you're a new beekeeper, that's something you'll be able to do too with a little bit more experience. All right, so that's about it. This presentation was about 25 minutes, so it lasted a good while. I think this presentation did well. I hope you enjoyed it. You might not agree with everything. I respect, if you have any opinions on kind of what's talked about in this. If you think it's overrated advice, what do you think? If it's overrated advice or not, let me know in the comment section below. Always happy to have a debate about it, and kind of talk about bees, and that's kind of what we all do. I appreciate y'all. I'm not done yet, so not done with my live stream yet. So if y'all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll answer those. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll answer them. I'm going to go through some comments real quick. Hey, Lee. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Flower Street Farm Bees. Brian. Thanks for checking in, Brian. Brian Bennett. Hello. All Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to y'all, too. Hope everybody's having a great holiday season. This weather has made me so ready for spring. Yep. I mean, today's been pretty nice. It's been pretty warm. Brian says, so cold here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. All right, so I'm going to kind of go over my weather real quick. Give me a second. Go to my weather. Always takes me a second to get there. But down here, it's been pretty warm the past couple of days. Hasn't really been cold. The nights haven't been getting that low. So here's our temperatures. So So let's go to 10-day. So the high today was actually 68 degrees. I was kind of, I knew it was around 70, 68 degrees. The low was 49 degrees. Tomorrow, the high is going to be 73 degrees. That's pretty warm. The low is going to be 52. The high on Wednesday is going to be 76. So Christmas Eve, not going to have no snow on Christmas Eve. It's going to be 76 degrees, mostly sunny, 52 degrees. And then Christmas Day, not going to be a white Christmas. It's going to be 75 degrees, mid 70s. You know, the low is going to be 53. Friday is going to be 74. The high, low is going to be 58 on Friday. Saturday going to be 77. The low going to be 59. Sunday is going to be 76, and the low is going to be 44. Monday is when we get cold again. Monday, the high is going to be 56. The low is going to be 28. So there we go. That's always my concern right there. Look at that. Sunday, you know, the high is going to be 76 on Sunday. The low is going to be 44. But then Monday, it's only going to get up to 56. So the lows in that night on Monday night can get down to 28. Tuesday night can get down to 25. The high next Tuesday, I'm talking about next Tuesday, is going to be 48. So we have some cold temperatures coming up. But lately it's been warm. That's just kind of been our up and down temperature. It's just kind of, that's really what we always, that's kind of Alabama temperatures that we always get. Hey Blaine, hey Grayson, hey everyone. Thanks for checking in, Blaine. Appreciate it. How many hives are you growing to this year coming up? I got 13 right now. I don't expect all of them to get through winter. Right now, they're all looking good and everything's going according to plan. You always lose a one or two or three. I mean, it's okay. I don't really, dwell over losing a couple. I just want to come out with about 10. If I come out with 10, I couldn't be happier because then I can, replace ones I'll lose. I do everything I can to prevent losses, but sometimes losses do happen. But if I can get out with all 13, I'm happy. They're all looking good. Clusters are looking good. Colonies are looking healthy and a lot of honey. I can triple again if I want to. It just really depends. I really don't know. I went from 4 to 13 this year. So technically, if I came up without at least 10, technically could triple if I wanted to get up to 30. That's something that's realistic, but I'm not going to, it just takes a lot of boxes and stuff like that. So I really don't want to be doing that. That's a little bit too much for me to handle. Kind of want to say a little bit more smaller. So maybe 15, 16, 17, I'd be open to around that. And that would be like the sweet spot. Around 20 would probably be the most. But I'll be doing some videos and I'll be kind of keep up. I'll let y'all keep up with what I grow up to eventually. All right, so that is so as you can see, December 28th, December 29th, December 30th, and December 31st, which December 31st is New Year's Eve, so holiday season. So you can see right there in that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that's just a big drop off. So that right there, I'll be looking at that. I'm going to do my best to make sure colonies don't starve, make sure they stay nice and full up, because they can for sure 100% starve with those up and down temperatures right there. They will absolutely. So you just gotta, could watch out for that. Make sure bees, are fed up well. They all still have pretty much enough food right now, but I'll make sure that that's the case. Let's see. Let me go through. Wow, 70. Man, I wish. Yep. It's nice for me. I love the weather. I would love 70-degree temperature around this time of the year, at least for me. But for me, my bees at least, I think I'd prefer it just to stay cold because just these up and down temperatures just kind of get the bees messed up, and then they start flying, and then it goes cold, it goes up and down. You have no idea what happens. It just kind of goes up and down. Every year, every winter, we deal with it. So it's just something I'm always used to. If you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll answer them. if you have any more. Fever Flowers, hey y'all, thanks for checking in. I think I missed you. Thanks for checking in. Joey Joseph Rawls, me again, Joey. Thanks for checking in. Hope it's all going well. Winter's coming back next Monday. Highs in the low 20s again. Wow. Yep. We're gonna get same for us too. Get back cold on next Monday. Gonna get down to about 28, and Tuesday's gonna get down to about 25. If y'all will on your way in, make sure to click that thumbs up button. That helps me out a lot. I appreciate it. Like I mentioned earlier, when I started this live stream, I actually recently just hit 2,700 subscribers. I appreciate that. 300 till 300 and actually never mind 288 till 3,000. So we're getting. I got my math wrong. I'm 298 away till 3,000. So right there near that. And then once I reach that 3,000 mark, I plan to do a giveaway. I've been planning to do a giveaway for a couple months now. I know y'all know that. I've not forgotten. Still going to do that. Then Sherelle, roll tide to you too. Got a massive win on Friday. So, I mean, I'm going to take it. If y'all don't know, I'm a big Alabama fan, so I always root for them. So, (1 degrees Fahrenheit this morning and got to 19 degrees. So, so your high was about 19 degrees? Wow. Either way, even if it's your lows or even your highs, it's still pretty cold. When do you usually start relaxing foundations for spring? I haven't really, got around to even kind of getting together what needs to be relaxed. Because I'll go out to the man, I got a lot of things to do. I got to get out into the BR. What I know I need to do. I need to clean up the BR, kind of get everything organized. I mean, that's what I usually do during winter is get everything kind of organized, things kind of put together, make sure everything's where it needs to go. I'll look around for foundation, that I need to re-wax. I have a lot of foundation that doesn't need to be re-waxed, that it's already waxed from last year that I know will still be good. Especially a lot of the newer boxes from last year that I can put in there and will work. I can't really tell you for sure when, because I gotta go out to the yard and kind of look at my situation, kind of what everything looks like. Probably if I have some to re-wax, probably be sometime in January. Grayson, are you seeing any wild red dashes? Haven't seen any. At least so far, I haven't seen really anything blooming at the moment. But I'm always looking out, for stuff if I see anything. Hey, Michael. Or excuse me, not Michael. I keep on getting names mixed up. Thanks for checking in, Matthew from Sand Valley Honey Company. Thanks for checking in. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in there. I'll answer them. Include that thumbs up button on your way in. I appreciate it. Let's see. I guess that's really all about the updates. I mean, there hasn't really been anything going on recently in the last couple of days. I mean, in the last couple of weeks. Last time I did my live stream was last week, and I didn't really. After I did my presentation, I really wasn't talking about a whole lot. I was just kind of feeding off the chat, kind of what I'm doing again tonight. The good thing whenever spring comes around is we're gonna have more things to talk about. I mean, it's just this time of year is like. That's why I do a lot of these presentations about topics, because I got nothing to talk about. During spring, there's things going on. There's, a lot of beekeeping things going on to talk about. But right now, there's not a really whole lot of that going on. So we're just kind of all sitting around and beekeeping chats and stuff, just kind of figuring out topics. I've been trying to do that too, just kind of bring up topics, whether it be, tonight's topic, which is the most overrated beekeeping advice. If you want to kind of go back and watch that on the replay, you can. Or like last week, I kind of talked about understanding the winter cluster, or the week before that, I was talking about winter mistakes. And the one before that, I was talking about beekeeping debates. And before that one, I was talking about beehive styles. Before that one, October beekeeping tips, almond pollination, fake honey, a lot of different stuff I come up with to talk about because there's just not a whole lot going on right now. At least for me. If y'all have anything going on, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll read it and see kind of what's going on in your area. But just nothing going on here. It's been kind of boring. All right, let me, real quick, I'm going to put some chat. I forgot to kind of answer these. I'll put some sugar water out the other day. I'll be going in a few hives tomorrow. Any dead outs, I'll just stand the boxes up to save comb. I mean, that's a good thing there. Look, I hate dead outs. I think everybody does. But if a hive does, if they don't make it, if they die, I think the best thing you can do is save that comb, because that comb will come in handy later on whenever you try to build up colonies in spring. Anytime I try to salvage a dead out and it's reuse the boxes, reuse the combs and stuff like that. Always whenever you're doing that, I mean, sometimes you can be careful with diseases, spread and stuff like that. But most times dead outs are just because either a higher mite load or most of the times starvation. Low 70s tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Let me go back to this company here. So, like I mentioned just earlier about my temperatures, and kind of went through what's going on here. If y'all will let me know what's going on here, I'm always curious to see kind of what y'all are dealing with. Always interesting to hear. If y'all do have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I will answer them as of late. In about 10 minutes, we'll kind of start wrapping things up. We're getting close to the end here. We got 3 days till Christmas, 2 days till Christmas Eve. I hope everybody has a good I hope everybody has been having a good holiday season. I hope everybody has a great Christmas in the next couple of days. Ain't much really happening on our end either. Did discover a colony that got into poison somewhat, which was a bummer. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, whenever you find that, sometimes bees get into poison and stuff like that. Always a bummer to hear. I've seen some yellow jasmine blooming, but that's not good for bees. Yeah, haven't seen much blooming here. I will keep y'all updated. If I see anything, I'll let y'all know. Pictures and stuff. I always, during these live streams, during the end, I'll pop up pictures and stuff of what I've found or seen. All right, I haven't been out in the bee yard for about a week or two. I think last time I went out there was about a week. Look, I haven't been out there much. I've just been leaving them alone. I've been letting them do their thing, let them overwinter smoothly. I do plan to go out there very, very soon to kind of check on them, make sure they're not running too low on stores. I always do weight checks every here and there, make sure they're heavy enough, make sure they don't run out of food. That's been my main priority, is make sure they don't run out of food. Make sure they don't starve. That's been really key thing for me, is prevent them from starving, because that's been the main issue. The last couple of times where my bees haven't been able to successfully overwinter, they've starved most times. But overall, we're kind of getting close to New Year's. We're getting close to 2026. I'm looking forward to 2026. It just seems like every year blows by fast. This year went by like faster than most years go. Seems like every year goes by faster. It seems like, but this year's been pretty good for me. I think the recent couple of years has been just much better beekeeping for me, because in 2023 I had a terrible year. It was like one of the worst years ever. Went into winter with about 4, came out with one colony, like one colony. I mean, it was just a bummer to see. Really unfortunate to see just one colony come out. Bought 6 nukes, expanded that year. I mean, a lot of the colonies just didn't make it. A lot of them didn't do well. Came out this year with 4. I went in with 6. So at one point last year, I had 12, but a lot of them just didn't make it. It just kept on. They kept on just not keep on dying. Just one after one, and then eventually it just what it was is really a lot of them were weak, and it just naturally all of the ones that probably weren't going to make it in the winter early on in like late fall just all collapsed, and then all the ones that did survive went into winter and got out of winter. I did go in with 6. I made out 4, and talking about last year going into this year, 2024 to 2025, the only reason one of them wasn't really anything that I could do. One of them just was lost to queen. So I mean, it just slowly didn't make it. It was just in winter. Couldn't do anything about it, losing a queen during winter. And the other one was just way too small. It was a late colony. It's just I had a box sitting outside in fall, and what happened was it just popped out of nowhere. Like I was out in the BR just walking around checking colonies, and I looked in a box and I was like, "That's a new colony! Like what happened? Like they just popped out of nowhere." So went in with 4. Went in with 6, came out with 4, tripled. I have 13 now. And honestly, I expected a drop off. It's just every year seemed like I lost a decent amount going into winter, but this year I was able to sustain the colonies going into winter. So I'm really happy with the way this year went. I got up to 13 and never lost a colony. Now I might lose 1 or 2, in the next couple of months, which it's as long as it's not a whole lot of them, but 1, 2, 3, you expect a loss or 2. I mean, it just happens. It's just kind of something that you experience, and I'm sure that I'll lose 1 or 2, but I'll be happy if I can get out of fall 13. I'll be happy if I can get out of 10. Good evening. Thanks for checking in at Bee Chief. Usually what causes a dead eye in winter is not enough food, possibly failing queen going into the fall, not creating a big enough cluster to keep everybody heated, and leaving the queen excluder on. Yep, absolutely. I think the number one main issue during winter, why bees starve, why bees, what causes a dead eye in winter is because of not enough food. I think that's number one main issue. I think mites, I mentioned it before earlier, I think mites are really a big issue. I think it does cause problems. But I think starvation is the number one main issue. I think a lot of people don't realize, especially what I'm talking about is like a lot of newer beekeepers. And failing queens in winter, I experienced that. I just talking about that failing queens. One of my queens failed during winter and didn't make it. And leaving the queen excluder on. I mean, I've never done that before. I never left the queen excluder on accidentally in winter. I know some people who've done that before. You let me know if you've done that before. I've just never really used excluders that much. I have 2 excluders right now, and I don't use them much. I agree. I think it takes an extreme infestation of mites before mites will take a colony out, but that's my opinion. Absolutely, that's been my stance. Really, I mean, earlier, if you missed earlier about the topic of the most overrated beekeeping advice, I really touched on mites and starvation. A lot of people talk about mites. I hear it all the time. Look, I know a lot of people who would do no mite Monday, for a chat, and that's really what this is. I don't talk about mites much because everybody knows kind of what's the problems are. We all treat them. They're still an issue. That if it's a big infestation, absolutely they'll cause a problem. But everybody talks about mites all the time. Really, I think the main thing to focus in on is starvation, queen failure. Some of those things, really are what cause dead outs in winter. Well, I guess we got about 8 minutes left. I'm going to start wrapping things up at least. I appreciate y'all, checking in, watching. I enjoyed tonight's chat. We had a good amount of people on here. We got up to about 23 folks on here tonight. As y'all have known, I think y'all have been catching on. That I'm starting at 6 o'clock, ending at 7 o'clock. That's Central Time. I start at 7 p.m. Eastern and at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's right. I run off Central Time, but that's Eastern for you if you are in Eastern Time. And it says you owe money to the swear jar for saying the N word. Hey, meaning on Mondays you can't say that. But yeah, if y'all will, if you're checking out right now, click that thumbs up button. I appreciate it. This has been a fun chat tonight. I'll go on for just a touch more, let it get to about an hour, then we'll officially shut things down. But tonight's topic, we talked about the most overrated beekeeping advice. I think it's a big topic. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If you missed it, kind of what I was talking about, you can always rewatch the replay, and you can see kind of what I was talking about, all that good stuff. If you watched live, the whole thing, had a good amount of folks watching live. I appreciate y'all, and thank you for watching. Thank y'all for watching live. I appreciate it. If you're watching on the replay, thank you for watching the replay. I really do appreciate that just as much. Haven't uploaded the video on my YouTube channel for about 10 days. I haven't really been uploading much videos. I've been kind of focusing on live streams because that's really what generates the most watch hours. In shorts, I've been kind of focusing on just videos right now. Not a whole lot to talk about. I might do one every couple weeks. Videos. You'll see maybe every 10 to 15, 20 days, you'll see a video out of a specific topic. But just haven't really been, uploading a whole lot. But, I'll get more out eventually. We're getting close to the 2026 year. Hopefully everybody has a good year. Hopefully everybody has a good holiday season. And hopefully next year will be a good year for beekeepers all across America. Everybody who's watching tonight. If you have any final questions, you can put them in there. I'll answer them at the last minute. I'm going to go to my notes real quick. I think I touched on everything I really kind of wanted to talk about. I really just kind of wanted to do this topic. I really didn't have anything else to talk about, at least, what's going on here, because there's not really a whole lot going on other than what I talked about. Let's see. No, I guess that's all I really want to talk about tonight. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate y'all. It's been fun, kind of talking about some good topics. Really what I really wanted to talk about was that not all beekeeping advice is things that you want to take 100%. There's not really rules in beekeeping. There are some things that are rules that are, general things that every beekeeper knows. But a lot of things, advice, tips, management styles, management ways of doing things, ways of keeping your bees, it all depends on climate. It all depends on where you live. It depends on your situation. It depends on what your situation is. It depends on how many colonies you have. It just a world of things. The list goes on and on and on about how many things it depends on. Just not really a 100% thing. Not really percent rules is really what I kind of wanted to talk about tonight. I appreciate y'all so much for watching. Click that thumbs up button on your way out. If you want to, share this out to any beekeeper you know. Maybe new beekeepers might find this helpful in some way. I hope so. Hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, and I don't know. I might go live next week. I'll let y'all know if I do or don't. I've done one the last back-to-back week, so I may, skip next week. I may not. We'll see when we get a little bit closer to the 29th, which is the next Monday. Again, I always, take it out for forever, but I apologize. Thank y'all so much for watching, and we will catch you next time. Good night, everybody, and Merry Christmas.